Hello and welcome. I am your host, Vafa, aka the Red SG Shredder. Thank you for joining me. This is the first in a series of video tutorials showing you how to get started with recording instrumental metal music at home with minimal equipment and cost. This series is aimed towards beginners. So in this first tutorial, I'm going to show you the equipment and software you're going to need and what I currently use. And then after that, I'll give you 5 general tips. And then at the very end, I'm going to show you a demonstration of how to record a guitar audio track and how to create a software instrument and put some MIDI on it. I'm going to cover guitar tones, bass tones, drums, mixing, and a bunch of other topics in future tutorials. Before we start, just a quick disclaimer, I'm not a recording engineer or an expert by any means. I'm completely self-taught, just like I am with guitar playing. That means I'm definitely wrong about some things. I'm going to show you some things that are inefficient or incorrect. However, the purpose of these videos is not to show you the right or correct way to do things necessarily. It's just to show you what I do and to help you get started. If you've listened to any of my music, you know that it's all instrumental. So what I'm going to be showing you is recording music with no microphones. That means no vocals. We're going to use sampled drums, which is great if you don't know how to play drums or don't own a drum kit like me. And instead of miking up a guitar or bass amp, we're going to use amp sims. However, if you do use a microphone, I think that these videos can still come in handy for you. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need is a computer. I've got a MacBook Pro 2016 here. It doesn't matter if it's Windows, Mac, or desktop, laptop. You can use even a phone or a tablet these days. Of course, more processing power is better, but it doesn't need to be over the top. The most important thing is just use what you have access to. Okay, the next piece of equipment you're going to need is an interface, which will just convert your guitar or bass analog signal into a digital signal, and you can record it on your computer. There are a lot of different brands of interfaces out there, but the most important thing is the preamp. I'm using a Focusrite Scarlett 2i4. Focusrite has a really good reputation for having good preamps, so I went with that. Just a note, you could probably go with the 2i2. I went with the 2i4 because I had used a 2i2 in the past. I had some clipping issues with it, but I've been told that those clipping issues in the older models for the 2i2 have since been resolved. Okay, so next is the DAW, or Digital Audio Workstation, or DAW for short, which is just software that runs on your computer and allows you to record individual tracks and then bounce them all down into one final product. There are free or paid options. If you're a Mac user, you can use GarageBand or you can use Logic. GarageBand is free, Logic is not. Or if you don't want to use either of those, or if you're not a Mac user, you can use Cakewalk, you can use Reaper, Ableton, Pro Tools. There's just a ton of options out there. I have used GarageBand in the past, had really good success with it, recorded a lot of music with it, but nowadays I'm using Logic because it's more fully featured. One note is you definitely want to check the minimum and recommended system requirements for your DAW. Even though I am using Logic, the information I'll be giving you in these tutorials is going to be general enough to apply to any DAW. Okay, next is studio monitors and headphones. You're going to need a way to listen to your music while you're recording or tracking and when you're mixing. You can go with just your basic computer speakers and some cheap headphones, but I do recommend that you go with some nice studio monitors and some good headphones. I actually don't use studio monitors. I've used them in the past and I didn't really find that they were useful because I'm not always tinkering with my mixes. I just use tones that I know I like and that I have used in the past. And for me, I'm more interested in recording and being creative rather than mixing and searching for all these different tones. But I don't recommend that you do what I'm doing. I do recommend that you go and get a good set of studio monitors. Okay, so for tracking, I recommend you use some kind of headphones. I have some better headphones than these, but when you're tracking or editing MIDI, you do want to use headphones, in my opinion, because it will really help you focus on the music. And when you're mixing, you're going to want to use your studio monitors and headphones. Listen to it on your car, in your car, or on your phone. I actually like to listen to my car a lot, but as many audio systems as possible, so it will give you a best idea of what your mix is really going to sound like. Okay, so now I'm going to give you 5 general tips. So first is just about experimentation. I recommend that you experiment and don't be held back by what you don't have, but you should use what you do have. You have a musical voice, so you got to use it. It's really important that you just get started. Next general tip is to just keep it simple. When you're doing something new, it's really easy to get overwhelmed, so just keep it simple. So third tip I have for you is about ear fatigue. It's really important that you recognize when this happens. So at some point when you're mixing and recording a lot of music, you may start to not really be able to tell what sounds better, what tones go better, and it's really important that you recognize when that happens and to take a break and come back to it the next day after you get a good night's sleep, because you can really end up ruining your mix or making bad mistakes if you do that. Unfortunately, that does mean that recording music can be very time consuming. All right, so fourth tip is just about general creativity. There's this concept of left brain and right brain, which may not be true, but I do think it's important that when you're being creative to just let loose, let the ideas fly, record everything, even if you are not really into it, record it and sift through it later. You don't want to hold back when you're being creative. Okay, fifth and final general tip is avoid clipping. So if you ever see red in your DAW or in your equipment interfaces and things like that, if you're going above 0 dB, that's bad. You don't want to clip. I've been guilty of it in the past. Obviously, you can clip it as sort of like a artistic decision, but you don't want to be doing it without knowing what you're doing. Okay, so now for the demonstration, you're going to want to plug in your interface into your computer. Mine is USB powered, so that means no external power, which is great. And then down here, you're going to choose line or instrument level. Short version is line is quieter than instrument. There is a lot more to it than that, but for our intents and purposes, you can just think of it as quieter. Down here, I've got this pad feature, which if you push this button, it actually reduces the gain even more. That's a feature that the 2i4 has, which is great. And what you're going to want to do is adjust your gain knob to be generally as loud as possible while you're playing really hard without getting any clipping. So the nice feature about the Focusrite Scarlett is when you start playing, you have this light ring around the gain knob and it will turn red if it starts to clip. As you can see, I've already set it up so that it doesn't clip, it just is still green. And you generally want to go for something that's as loud as possible but still without clipping. Okay, all of the same stuff is over here on this side. This is the second input, which we're not using. And then on this section over here, you've got all your output and monitoring options. And you can set it up however you want so that you can hear what you're recording. Okay, so now let's actually record something. So let's fire up Logic. Okay, the first thing it's going to ask you is, do you want to create an empty project? Let's say yes. So we're going to choose audio track or software instrument track. As you can see in Logic, you have a bunch of other options, but for now, let's just do audio. Audio tracks are things like guitar or bass performances. It's where you actually have an audio file and then you put effects and things like that on top of it. So to record an audio track, we're going to record arm it. As you can see, it's already record armed and it is also got input set. So if I start playing, you can just hear the completely raw, dry signal. So let's go ahead and record. It's kind of annoying. As you can see, the metronome is actually causing the input to clip. But let's go ahead and play something. And let me just trim that up because there's a lot of silence in the beginning there. And I'll just go ahead and listen back to what we have. Sounds like nothing. All right, so in order to make that sound good, we're going to put a guitar tone on it. So let's go over here and let's just do easy mix. And I'll go into this in depth in a future tutorial, but let's go ahead and put a real actual guitar tone on it. Let's do Cannibal. That'll sound good. Oh. A little floppy. All right, so that's how you record a audio track. Next, I'm going to show you how to do a software instrument. So let's go ahead and create another track. Software instrument and create it. So a software instrument is not a recorded audio, but it's actually MIDI. And the way I like to think of MIDI is it's kind of like digital sheet music. It's got information, pitch and duration and types of notes and things like that, but it's not necessarily going to tell you what instrument. So you could take sheet music and give it to someone who plays violin, they'll play it. You could give it to someone who plays a piano and they'll play it, etc. And you have the same idea here. So let's just go ahead and create some MIDI musical typing. There it is. All right, so let's go ahead and record some MIDI. I'm getting a little bit of clipping there too. As you can see, I'm creating MIDI, but you can't hear anything because we don't actually have any instrument selected. So that's good enough there. So now let's play it back, but this time let's choose an instrument. As you can see here, we've got a bunch of choices. This is all built into Logic. Your DAW probably has some other things built into it. So let's do a piano and listen. All right, whatever. But see, you can then change it to a different instrument. Let's say, I don't know, orchestral harp. All right, so that's a very high-level idea of how to get started with recording music at home. And in the future, I'll go into details of recording guitar, bass, drums, mixing, and that sort of other stuff. If there's anything you're specifically interested in, let me know. If you have any questions, let me know. And please be sure to subscribe so you can see my future videos and see the rest of this series. Thank you for watching.